just let me just understand that right. Just because I feel like I misheard you. Was you sleeping in your studio?
Yeah.
Oh
So I had
my
like
word.
I,
Hey guys, what's going on? And welcome back to another episode of Mixed Opinions. I'm your host, MixedByJocelin, and we have a fantastic guest on for you guys today. But before we get into that, a big shout out to Audio Movers. They're sponsoring this episode and they're giving you guys 1 month free of all of their plugins across the board. They've upgraded us this year, guys. So shout out to Audio Movers. All you have to do, hit the link below, go on their site, anything that takes your fancy, listen to, or any of their other plugins. Use the code MixedOpinions2024 at checkout and you'll get 1 month free. So shout out to those guys. But today on the episode, we have the great Sendai Mike. How are you doing, bro?
I'm great, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, bro, I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, bad boy, content creator, engineer, recording, and, the vocal stylist, any vocal style you want, you've got it. Guy, you know what I mean? Like, I love it, mate. I love the videos.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
It's honestly so dope. I'm always like so baffled because you say, "Oh, I watch one of the reels," and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna redo this," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, this isn't gonna sound anything like it." And then I'm like, "Oh shit, that's dope! Like it sounds amazing." So,
Yeah, it
and
gets
you're putting me
close
on
enough
all the
is what I
time.
always say.
Say that again. Sorry.
Oh, it's close enough is what I always say.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah, and obviously, and I love watching the techniques because I'm always like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Oh, we can do it like that. Like, I'm learning new processes, not even just to
Yeah.
emulate that sound for myself, but just embed into my workflow and try to work on stuff. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, shout out to you guys.
Yeah.
For you guys that don't know what I'm talking about, check out his page. You'll get it straight away. He makes dope videos on Instagram, and you're on YouTube as well, right?
I made some YouTube videos years and years ago. I haven't been very consistent with it, but I do have a YouTube channel. I'd like to get back into it, but
Okay,
it's
well, let's
a lot,
hope
lot
for
of
that.
balls in the air.
Man, I think your content on Instagram is so like clean and flawless. I think you'd make great YouTube videos. I'm not gonna lie.
Thanks,
like
man.
just extended versions of what you're already doing on
And
Instagram would be dope.
Yeah, I definitely think that I agree. There's a place for that because I on the short form content, it's such a limiting, just because it's so short time wise. It's so limiting in the depth that you can go to for educational content that it's really a shortcoming of the format. And so I would love to make longer form stuff, but also
Yeah.
the longer form stuff takes a lot longer to make too. So
Obviously, I think it's like 1 minute 30, right? Is like the max for a
for
reel or
reels,
something like that.
reels.
Yeah, which is, obviously it's brilliant, and that's what people want now because they really
Yep.
want, that quick, snappy content, and
Yeah.
everyone's just that dopamine hit. But
Yeah.
I feel like your vibe, you have like quite a like minimalistic vibe about you and your studio space and the way that you're, even your like, because you have a unique style in which your videos are created. I just think that would lend itself so well to
Yeah.
YouTube, not even like, it's like a double package almost. Like I could watch your videos to like learn something that I want to learn, search it, but also same sort of vibe, just relaxing, have it on my iPad, eating my breakfast or
Oh,
whatever,
nice.
because
Yeah.
of the the style in which your reels are already created. I feel like it would just lend itself perfectly into the YouTube
Totally.
space. So hopefully we see some YouTube videos from you this year.
Yeah.
I'll keep on you about it.
Definitely do that. I appreciate the encouragement, man. I appreciate that. Because
100%.
this was probably 2011. I started uploading to YouTube on I had like a point and shoot camera, and I was shooting beat making tutorials on Machine.
Yes.
And for the time, they were getting a decent amount of views, and I got my YouTube channel monetized. And this was like I was editing them in Windows Movie Maker. They're like tiny pixelated little videos, And I was in school at the time, and I just never kept up with it. So I definitely would love to get back into it.
Yeah, I feel like your audience would translate well as well, to be fair.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
definitely something to consider. I was surprised. I just assumed, that would be there. So for me, it feels like a natural sort of
Right.
progression, maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, obviously the the don't stop doing the reels because they're dope. And you
Yeah,
know,
thanks.
that format, you nail it. So just to like get into it, for those that don't know who you are, I'd love it if you would give a bit of background
Yeah, yeah,
about who you are and how you got into the industry, and you know how you've got to the point that you are today.
definitely. I'm right now, just we'll start here and then go backwards. I'm a mixing and recording engineer and studio owner. So I have a very small vocal recording studio, and I have one other engineer working in here, and we record and mix local artists here in Seattle, Washington. And then I also do a fair bit of remote mixing for artists all over the place. And that's where I'm at with my career right now.
Amazing.
I think I've been doing the studio thing for since 2017. And it's a very small studio. Like, this is not a commercial space. This is basically a bedroom studio in an office unit that I rent. Just to make it clear, like, if you put me in an actual studio, I wouldn't know how to mic a drum set. I've never used a Neumann. Wouldn't know how to, never used any outboard gear. I'm really a bedroom guy doing bedroom things just at scale.
Yeah, but I think that is a lane that's been carved. Do you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
And definitely has like a seriously valued spot in the industry right now.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would say the majority of records that come out, and even like big records that come out, are recorded in just those sort of environments. Like my
Totally,
space
totally.
here is just a mixing room. It don't even have a vocal booth or anything.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
small. It's well treated, but you know, by no means standard is it like of a commercial level. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
But we
right, right.
still manage to produce brilliant records from our spaces, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's
Oh
no
yeah.
shortfall in that, I don't think.
Right, right. No, um, definitely not. Definitely not. It's interesting too because here in Seattle, I'll circle back to my story here in a
Yeah,
second, but
please. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm already going on the side quest, but there's so little industry here, and I think a lot of people would probably relate to that in their cities. Like, there's big music hub cities, and then there's a lot of mid-sized cities that don't really have any labels. They don't have there's venues and stuff, but they don't have labels. There's not artists getting signed to labels in their city. And in those situations, you're working with independent artists. The independent artists don't need the big room. They don't need, um, yeah, they don't need the big facility. They just
No.
need to record. Yeah. But circling back, I grew up playing music, grew up playing violin, drums, started making beats in high school a little bit, just dabbling just for fun, chopping samples in Audacity and Sony Acid.
Oh
And
wow.
this was like before SoundCloud. I'm 33, so this was in like 2005, 2006. I was just
Yeah.
chopping up like Led Zeppelin songs I was listening to, just chopping them up and rearranging them for fun. And then I started making beats, I think, seriously as like a lifestyle obsession around 2010. That's when Native Instruments Machine came out,
Yeah, I
and I
had the same
saw,
machine.
yeah, the MK1. I saw they had some great YouTube videos, just the marketing. It was the beginning of the content marketing for products, and they had guys doing finger drumming and stuff.
Yeah,
And
it took it by storm. I was quite lucky because around that time I was working for a music shop, so
oh,
I just like
nice.
borrowed one, put it in my bag,
Yeah, yeah.
and you know that's basically how I actually started. Same sort of time,
Awesome,
really getting
man.
into it. But yeah, the shout out to Native Instruments and shout out to Machine because they birthed a
Yeah,
lot of great producers from that piece of gear.
totally. Yeah, I saw some of those videos, and as a drummer, I was just like, oh, I gotta try that because I'm in school tapping on the desk all day, and it's just like, wow, I could be making songs like that. And
Yeah,
it just took me down a whole route of just obsession of making the beats, and so I just made beats. I was still in college at the time, and got to know a lot of rappers through making all the beats. And I was in school for civil engineering. Didn't care for it too much. It's a good career path, but not really a passion of mine. I worked
no,
for 4 years as a drainage engineer, so all like
right,
the grates in the street that collect the stormwater.
yeah,
There's like a whole network of pipes under the street, graded at different sizes and slopes to convey all that water, and it all has to be engineered, from
yeah,
in a traditional engineering. So that I did that for 4 years. I got really depressed. Still making beats every day, just And I got to the point where I was able to arrange with my boss to be like, hey, I'm going to finish out this project that I'm working on, and then I'm going to go try and do whatever I can in music.
Okay, so you
And
took a jump.
I didn't really know what that was going to look like at first, but I told my boss that, and I had about a year to work while I prepared. And so I considered going into live sound. I considered, I think, the dream was to be an actual like producer or, a producer known for their own electronic productions or production works, and also work with artists. That I think was my big idea at the time. But basically, I just need to get some type of income, and
Yeah,
I
you
knew I
needed to
wanted to do
get
that through
paid.
music.
Yeah.
Through music. So, as a producer, knew all these rappers. The rappers need a place to record, and so the easiest thing for me to do was just that. And that was a thing that I could do right now. So I just started doing sessions after work in my just in my studio apartment. Like I think I started like 10, $15 an hour. Just for fun with friends,
Yeah, of course,
and
yeah.
uh, with the Rockets and
Yeah,
$100 MXL microphone and the M Audio Fast Track,
I
and with
love it.
no idea what I was doing, cracked waves plugins, and the whole just the really what kind of like the traditional
Yeah,
bedroom producer
I
route.
mean, every guy started with a pretty much parallel
Yeah.
bundle, do you know what I mean?
Yep, yep, yep. And yeah, and then I just went from there. I did that in the room for every night after work for probably a year and a half or so. Then was able to quit the job, and I rented this space here, which is a very small, a couple 100 square foot office unit, close to downtown in Seattle. And I was able to get a really good deal on this vocal booth. Moved in here, slept in the booth for 2 years, just booking sessions, and I was able to eventually, get the volume up enough to move out, and I'm just still doing it now, and just trying to keep it growing, keep it moving. I got another engineer in here working now. I'm trying to
So,
expand the remote mixing and keep
let
it
me just
moving.
let me just understand that right, just 'cause I feel like I misheard you. Was you sleeping in your studio?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh
So I had
my
like a
word.
it's a very small, like, I mean, I'll just spin this around real quick here. Like, you can see it's a very small room. It's not
Right.
a very wide angle, but there's the vocal booth. There's a large vocal booth, 5x7. So I had a little REI camping pad, like a little like a camping sleeping mat, and a sleeping bag. And after sessions every night, I'd be like, "Good night, guys. See you next time." And then I'd just crawl into the booth and pass out and wake up, do it all again the next day.
Oh
Just
my
eating
god,
like
that is
bagged
actually
meals and
crazy. That is mad. And how long was
yeah,
you
dude,
doing that for?
2 years straight.
Bro,
Yeah,
all
and
props to you. I mean, that just shows it, like, the dedication to it. Like, you had this stable, what could be a very high paying job. Two of
yeah,
my
yeah,
two of my
yeah.
brothers are engineers and civil
Oh,
engineers,
nice.
and
Yeah, yeah. Oh, right
they're
on.
killing it, and like, they
Yeah,
like the
yeah. I know,
security, that's
dude.
their thing. But like, you know, I just find that incredible that you were like, no, I have to follow my passion, all the way to the point where you took the risk, you rented this space, and you slept there for 2 years. Like, honestly, props to you, man. That is incredible.
The I do wanna give a special thanks to my girlfriend, Nelly. She put up with me through all of that. We met about 6 months before. I was like, "Okay, babe, so I'm gonna, move into this, vocal booth
No,
now." So, I was able to go I was able to go to her house a couple nights a week and to take a shower and stuff. So, it's not like, I was like, I didn't have nowhere to go. So that was definitely, without her, it would not have been it would have been different.
yeah. I mean, that's amazing. I feel like a lot of partners, that wouldn't be too much for them to handle, too much for them to deal with.
Right,
But
right.
that's so dope, man. That's so dope. And honestly, like, what a story. I had no idea. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's so sick. But brilliant. But yeah, so and then that's led you to sort of this point now where you're carving a living out of it, and you're working consistently doing
Yeah.
what you love.
Yeah, I can't complain. There's always I think for me, there's always a desire to keep growing and keep expanding. And I try not to let that manifest as like dissatisfaction, just, remembering on everything I've been through. But it's the work's never over. I still feel like I'm just getting started here, with everything. And the studio as a business is it's really tricky. I don't know if you do hourly recording at all, but as a
Yeah.
business model, the recording studio is just a really tough egg to crack. And I've gotten it to this certain point. But it is not it's not easy. It's not really a scalable business model, unfortunately. So
No,
you take
because
it
I
so far,
mean,
and it is what it is.
yeah, you're sort of like capped at whatever the hourly
Mhm.
rate is at that,
Mhm.
in that sort of like environment that your
Yep,
setup
yep.
is in. And then
Yep,
even
yep.
like scaling it up even further, you then have to sort of like get into the pocket of like these bigger labels and things like
Yeah.
that and
Yeah,
create
yeah.
relationships with them to warrant the price of like a much more like bigger and
Right, right.
professional studio, we'll say. But
Yeah, yeah.
you're still getting the same quality most of the time out of it. But yeah, 100%. That's why I think obviously, it's essential part of our careers is recording, because I do still do recording sessions.
Yeah, yeah.
um and like, I don't know what the sort of economy's like over there, but we're sort of like, for a space like this, even with like an experienced engineer like me, we're sort of like capped at like that 35 to 40 pound an hour
Mhm, mhm.
situation. Can't really grow much past that.
Yeah.
And So that's why, for me, like, mixing has become such an essential part, not
Yeah.
only because I love mixing and I much prefer it and it's my passion, hence
Yeah.
why I have this podcast and I do YouTube videos and I literally live and breathe mixing. um but it's something where it's a lot more scalable, I think. Do you know what I
Totally.
mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the more mixes you do, the better mixes you do, the bigger records come out, the more you can
Yep,
rise the
yep, yep.
price. And I think it can get very, very high,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
the
yeah.
price that you charge. And for me personally, what I love the most is like, I'm not constricted to a time.
Yeah,
uh
yeah.
so I have, I can only earn X amount between 4 and 5 doing this session. But with mixing, I can
Exactly.
be mixing multiple records, and I can do it as in however quick it needs to be done, or however long it needs to be done, and whenever I want to do it. Do you know what I
Yep,
mean? So
yep,
you have a
yep.
much bigger freedom of time with that. So I
So
see
a
that. And
personal question to ask you, and this is something that, I guess business mentors have asked me, and I have failed to provide them with a logical answer just in terms of the business, but why do you continue to record at all?
for me, it's to keep one foot in the door, and to keep introducing myself to newer artists
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
maintaining relationships. There's
Yeah, yeah,
certain
yeah.
situations where, um, and as well, to be honest, like, I, as a mix engineer, and this is inherent, and I'm sure you'll um, agree with me on this, we're perfectionists, right?
Yeah.
So like, the worst thing in the world is being sent stems that are like absolute dog shit. And you don't, and like, you're trying to deliver them a sound quality that you can achieve, but you get like one hand tied behind your back just because of how it
Yeah.
was recorded. So like,
Yeah.
there's certain artists out there, like, that I work with still today, where I'm like, do you know what, bro? I think you should just come down and record it here,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
then I
yeah.
can take care of it all for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they're happy to pay the fee because, again,
Yeah, yeah,
it's sort
yeah.
of competitive. I can't really charge them much more.
Totally.
And and that way they know that they're going to get
Yeah.
the product that they're after, because it's all taken care of by me.
Yep, yep, yep.
So that's sort of my idea behind it. And and it's just, do you know what, as well, sometimes it's just nice to have like someone to talk to.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
do you know what I
No,
mean?
it's fun. It's hella fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I sit in my studio all day, every day, just by myself, like mixing,
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll have an assistant in here or whatever, but like the majority of the time, no. And it's just nice to like still have that kind of connection. But,
Yeah.
for me, I did have to leave the late night stuff
Yeah, yeah.
alone. So it does make it harder to sort of like get me in the, like, where most artists want to record. But like, if they're
Right,
willing
right.
to work my hours, I'll happily track
Totally.
them. Do you know what I mean? So that's my idea. It isn't really anything, it's, and it does seem counterproductive from a business point, like what you were saying,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like, you're not making as much money. Like, if I worked out my hourly mix rate, it's probably like 50, 60 quid an hour rather
Yeah.
than
Yeah, yeah,
30.
yeah.
So like it doesn't make any sense like from a money point of view, but
Right.
from a business growth and like continuing to just like be in the situation, you know,
Totally.
it makes total sense. I think in an ideal world, and I know this is how a lot of engineers work, like it would be brilliant to get to the point where, you know, your mixes, you charge X amount. So that can cover you for any like time you spend developing
Yeah.
other artists and working with them.
Yep, yep, yep.
You don't have to charge them. You just say, come down, spend some time with me. You know, I'll have another engineer recording. I can pop in and out, maintain the relationship, and then take
Yeah,
on the
yeah, yeah.
mixes and just boost. Like that to
Yeah,
me is
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's the ideal situation, you know?
Nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but that's me. We're here to talk about you. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, appreciate the question, man, because it's something nice to talk about, and I do think the viewers would appreciate it as well, because
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
I feel like a lot of people are in uh, a similar situation.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep, yep.
So yeah,
Totally.
that's great. So back to sort of like where you was. So this is where you are now, and running the business and sort of working consistently as an artist and, and having this crazy growth from sleeping in the studio to, you know, actually having like a full-fledged business and being able to move out, and like full props to you. That's amazing. So my
Thanks,
next
man.
question to you is sort of like, um where did the content creation come from, and like, you know, when did you start
Yeah.
sort of making these kind of videos and stuff, because they are very popular and you do very well out of them. Do you know what I mean? And obviously that will, and it's part of the question really, like does it sort of translate well into the business side of things?
That's a great question. I'll start with the so I started making the Instagram videos, I think in 2018. So shortly after I started the studio, I was, instead of instead of moving out and buying a place to renting a home to live in, I was paying a business coach
Right.
an exorbitant fee, and he was telling me, well, I mean, just regular fee, I guess, for a business coach, but for me at the time, it was quite high. And I was telling him like, "Oh, I think I wanna make YouTube videos or la di da di da." And he was like, "Okay, you should start making videos. How many do you wanna make?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe like 1 a week I could do." He's like, "No, make 2 a week." So, I'm paying this guy all this money, shout out Sean, he's telling me to make the videos, I better start making them. So I started making YouTube videos, and the idea was these are gonna be videos to help my clients. These are videos to educate my clients about how to record at home. So this is a video about how, making videos about how to record in the home studio setup, just like ergonomic stuff, or like about using, inner ear monitors to prevent headphone bleed, just very practical nuts and bolts stuff. Like
Yeah.
these are the problems I'm experiencing with my clients. I want to educate them all at once without having to have these same conversations over and over again. And that was kind of the seed of that. Of course, I'm filming these 15-minute videos for YouTube. I'm chopping them down for social. This is before Reels, right? This is like Instagram had just, video was still like novel on Instagram at the time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
And
you could post like a square video sort of
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Squares, or 5/4, I think was the max for
Ratio.
quite a while. And immediately what I saw was that I'm getting far more engagement and views on the Instagram clip than I am getting on YouTube. And the YouTube, even though it's driving some traffic to the YouTube, most, if I can just clip the, most important parts, put them on socials. And I was putting in it at the time, the videos were terrible looking, but I was putting in a huge amount of time into them. And then one week, I was like, oh, I got to keep the videos coming. I didn't have time to get the camera out and edit it. So I just filmed a short video just on the front camera of the phone, and the analytics on that were higher than any video that I'd actually shot and edited, just because it's so, at the time that style of authenticity was so novel in that era of just
Yes, of
talking into the
course. Yeah.
camera. And so, you see these different eras of the audience's appetite for different styles of content. And so I just hit that little wave, and I started doing more philosophical content about aimed still at artists, but about navigating being an artist and marketing. And I did that for a couple years maybe, and mixed with some mixing tips and just like little tips and tricks. And that that really helped, just keep it. Honestly, it just helped the marketing for the studio. I wasn't getting a lot of mixing work from that, but it helped keep all my local clients coming in, keep me top of mind, and I didn't start getting mixing work off of. Oh,
What you just said is such a crucial point. And I
yeah,
and
yeah.
and I believe in that so much. And I say this to all of my guys that I work with on a regular basis, because I do a mentorship course, and
Oh, nice.
part of it is growing a business and growing a brand and stuff. And that's what I always say to them. I'm like, even if you're not a massive guy about posting on social, like, you have to forget it, because you have to be at the forefront of people's
Exactly.
minds. Like, when they then think, oh, I need to go to the studio, you need to be the last person that they saw and they thought of in that
Exactly.
space for them to call you. So, like,
Exactly.
110%, you couldn't be more right in that space. And yeah, I'm really glad you put it like that, because it's a point that I always try to get across, and it's very difficult to word it in the right way. Do you know what I mean? To, like,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
make
yeah.
sure that they understand. So yeah, brilliant point.
There is, and I want to not necessarily push back on that, but add another perspective of it too, because as uh when TikTok came out, I was late to the game on TikTok. I think had I been early to the game on TikTok, my life would be materially different right now.
Right.
But I was fairly late to TikTok, and when I finally got on TikTok, I think it was in late 2020. It was I saw how powerful it was in terms of just how many eyes you can get on the content so
Yeah, of
quickly.
course. Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay, this is where I need to be, obviously, start making the TikToks." But at that point, I was in just like content grind mode. I was just like, "Okay, make one video, blah blah blah," just grinding them out. The joy was gone, and I did
Mm,
that 2020, 2021. Yeah, I guess end of 2020, 2021. I had made a decent amount of TikToks. 2022, I made like a lot more TikToks. And the truth of it is, I probably 2022, I put in probably 2x the effort and time, huge amounts of time on making these fucking videos. And at the end of the year, I looked at the total remote mixing volume I had, and it was dead the same in 2022 as it was in 2021, despite putting huge more amounts of effort into TikTok. And that was a thing for me, is like, oh, it's not just about consistency, because if the content isn't right, and they were performing, they weren't performing great. It was just, but I was more so focused on the consistency and making sure that they were coming out consistently. But it wasn't actually affecting my business at all. And it took me unfortunately, because the feedback loop on this was so long, it took me a year to make that adjustment back into focusing on the quality and the viewer retention of the content again. And
right.
so I will say that, because there is the narrative of like, oh, the consistency is so important, and it is for staying top of mind if you have reoccurring clients. But if it's consistent, but not if
Quality.
you, yeah, if you can be as consistent as you can be the most consistent in the world, but if it's not acquiring new clients, or if it's not bringing in new audience, then you have to adjust something. And so in coming around there in 2023, around that corner, I started going hard focus back into education and the content again, and I started doing really dry technical. There's a few videos from about a year ago where I was like, going into very like, technical explanations of room acoustics and mid-side processing and stuff. But that's what excited me. That's what got me
Yeah.
excited about making the content again. And then from there, I kind of veered into the edutainment sort of realm of doing the My Toxic Trait videos. Um, and once you get excited about the content again, people can see you're excited, and the response is a lot better. And yeah, I've been off it again though. I haven't made a video. I haven't made a new fresh TikTok in educational TikTok in like several months. Yeah, it's a constant morph, but that's kind of the whole arc of my content creation journey
Yeah,
there.
of course, of course. And I mean, would you say that there was like a particular, because you talked about like different styles and different like versions of
Oh
engaging
yeah,
the
yeah.
audience, right? Would you say that there was a particular one that like stood out as like, okay, this makes sense? Like, where was the like niche that sort of like found you found the most growth?
Oh, yeah, for sure it was. I mean, the My Talks, the videos where I'm recreating the vocal chains, like, those get a decent amount of eyes, people like them. 'Em, they're funny, but I think the ones that are the most helpful and the ones that with the best analytics are, the ones where there's a visual of the plugins and there's a audio, and the audio is changing with the visual of the plugins. So I did a video last year, which was about, like, the 3 eras of vocal EQ mixing. It did,
Okay.
like, I think 2 million views on TikTok.
Wow.
And that was the thing that one single video and the videos like it were responsible for probably 80% of the account growth. And the videos where I'm like recreating the vocal chains, like they're funny and people like them, but they're not actually driving a huge amount of growth.
Right, more consistency, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in terms of, like, viewership. That's
And
really
and
cool, man, and
even
that's super like, for me, I'm super interested in it, like, obviously,
yeah, yeah.
from a personal, um, perspective, because this is something that I'm trying to achieve at the moment,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have this platform, Mixed Opinions, and, my YouTube channel and stuff like that, and I believe that, um, my content is of value, right?
Oh
But it's
yeah,
like,
definitely.
yeah, and and I feel like you have to believe it, like, without sounding, like, vain or anything like that,
Yeah,
but,
yeah, yeah.
like, what my consistent struggle is how to sort of, like, crack that sort of
Yeah.
short form
Well,
content in a way that gets people to my long form content, because I genuinely, I've got some amazing, episodes out already that I think
yeah.
people would, like, really benefit from watching, and that I know that there's an audience that would appreciate it, but it's like getting it to them. Do you know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
is something that I'm consistently trying to, like, work on and figure out.
I've definitely got some thoughts on that. I've found that the best performing videos, we're in the engineering niche,
Yeah.
and so if I start a video with this is an explanation of mid-side processing,
Yeah.
everybody who doesn't know what mid-side processing is already swiping away from it.
Boom.
And
Gone.
so what I've actually realized is that although you want to keep your content for a niche audience, or maybe you don't, but for people like us, we do, the hook ideally is going to cast a wide net. So my toxic trait as the hook cast the widest net possible because it sounds juicy. It sounds like drama. It sounds like, so it doesn't matter who
Mm.
you are. You want to find out what
I
that
want to
is.
know what your toxic trait is. Yeah.
And then you narrow down the audience so you retain as many people as you can with the hook, and
Yes.
then you can start shaving them off as the narrative progresses. But that's the big thing that I've found is you want to cast the hook needs to cast as wide of a net as possible,
Yeah.
to capture the widest amount of retention in those first few seconds, because that's what drives the video in these algorithms is retention in the very beginning. That's the number. Well, who knows? It could be comments. It could be, but that for me at least, I think
Yeah.
that's the
They
number
change
one
it
thing is
every
like,
week.
yeah.
Okay,
But if
that makes a lot of sense. That does make a lot of sense. So,
the,
the first, like, 5-10 seconds of the video, like, try to make it as sort of like across the board as possible,
yeah,
like
yeah,
non sort of technical, particular, and, like, make it sort of like generic in a way. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah, yeah,
interesting
or
at
not,
the same time.
yeah, yeah, interesting, appealing, or invite some sort of intrigue that's going to appeal to the general. Because here, the thing is, these videos that I've gotten that have are up there in the hundred thousands or millions of views, most of the views are people that have nothing to do with
Yeah.
they're not artists. They're not artists, and so but the thing is, you're going to get more artists watching that than if you just start it a different way and only a few people ever watch it. So it's an interesting thing. The other thing that I would say too in the engineering niche that's tough to crack is that for me the struggle has always been, am I making content for engineers or am I making content for artists? The artists
Yeah.
are the clients that I want to attract. The engineers are the ones that are interested in the information that I have. And it's something that I never truly sorted out, but it's something to really think about because the audience of artists and the artists are engineering themselves now. That's a shifting
That's
demographic.
exactly what I was gonna say. I was like, I feel like it's, there's a big gray area there where
Yeah, yeah.
it's both
People
audiences.
that
It can
don't
tail to
identify
both.
as engineers are still needing to learn this. So
Yeah.
if that's another thing I've been thinking about a decent amount lately, is that the core audience that I've talked to has always been artists, and got it confused in my head, like, oh, I need to make this for engineers. I need to be talking to engineers, and I do. But the truth of the matter is, a majority of my audience are artists, and a lot of those artists mix themselves. Um, and yeah, so it's another thing to chew
Like the
on is that
DIY culture, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
but I think that's where people like me and yourself who have grown from that
yep, yep,
culture and have become professionals. That's what I think is why the lane is so important to fill, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and
totally,
you know, people like Devon who I had on last week, people like that,
yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, we've all come from that same pool, you know, and and you know, because the people that really 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 care about it and like are on a journey to become super professional, they're gonna go to school or whatever. Do you know what I
hmm,
mean? Or you know, or they're gonna find you anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because they're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
search out and find the video. So it's the people, it's the audience that are like, yeah, I'm sort of interested. I make beats on the weekend, all that stuff. That's the net. I feel like that
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
important to catch, you know, but
yep,
not to
yep,
talk
yep.
about the audience like fish. But sorry, you
I
know,
mean, but to be realistic though, when we're just when they're consuming the content like a product, and you know, you want to have an authentic connection with the audience, la di
yeah,
da di da, and it's all very important. I'm not trying to but I'm not yeah, also, I'm not, making videos because I like just, like, talking to random people in the DMs, you know, like, I like
no, of course not.
it's like there's this is for me, and I like, and again, first and foremost, yes, it is about the education. It is about helping people and, of being of service, and also, if I wasn't doing this for a business, I would have 0 interest in going on TikTok and making videos.
Yeah.
It's very much, this is the top of the marketing funnel for me, and, yeah.
It is across I think like the majority of sort of niches and industries and stuff like that now. You know, unless like your old industry engineering is slightly different, but like, you know,
Yeah, sure,
any
sure.
especially creative, anything like that, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it has to be, you know, it's the way to it's the only way really to properly present yourself to the
Mhm,
world. Do you know
mhm.
what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah, especially
yeah.
for a personal brand, yeah,
Yeah,
for
of
sure.
course. So coming off of the content creation side of things slightly, um, I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of your favorite records that you've worked on as a
Oh, yeah.
producer, engineer, recording, whatever it is, like some standout records to you that you're proud of, and you know, and have you know you've worked on them and you know seen them throughout the release.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, I have not worked, people always ask, like, "Well, what's the most famous person you've worked with?" I've worked with very few artists that anybody knows about, you know? It's,
Right.
a lot of small independent artists, so I don't expect anybody to know, anyone who I'm about to mention here, but, I worked with, and people may know him depending on your background, but I worked with a producer, Larange. He's like a classic hip hop artist, producer, and he lived in Seattle for a few years. So I recorded 2 albums with him. Didn't mix them, but I recorded them and had a blast with his
Amazing.
buddy Solemn Brigham. And that project is called Marlowe. Marlowe 1 and 2 were both recorded here while I was sleeping in the booth.
Right. That era.
Yeah, so those are really, and that's like just really, it's like experimental boom bap, just like really the stuff that I came up on, you know. So those projects hold a special place in my heart. Um, Last year I got to record and mix a local artist here called Mosea. She's like pop R&B, well, not really R&B, but pop, yeah, pop, hip hop R&B
Right.
artist, but she's got an incredible voice. She does a lot of sync, so she's just very, very like, um, just one of those voices that's like, she's got the voice, you know, and she's
Yeah.
an amazing songwriter and arranger. And so we recorded and mixed a, it's like a 7 or 8 track EP with her last year, and the producer was very involved. The producer's down in LA. Shout out to Mark. So he was in on FaceTime on all the sessions, updating the stems and sending new in. So they were going back and forth, and it turned out really great. I really loved working on that one too.
Amazing.
Honey J EP by Mosea.
If you send me the links to those
Yeah, yeah.
after the call, I'll put them down so you guys can check out the music and
Oh,
hear
definitely.
your work as well. That would be
Oh, yeah.
amazing. So yeah, dope. That's amazing. It is really like, it sort of leads me on to like one of my next questions, because, and we've sort of touched on it a little bit already. We're talking about the recording process and stuff, but like I wanted to speak to you about how important building a relationship with your clients and the artists
Mhm.
that you work with is to you, like, and your experiences with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the relationship is everything, especially when you're working in person. There are people that I see, and I talked with other engineers about this. It's this funny thing where I wouldn't say like we don't hang out outside the studio generally. I don't like really hang out with my clients outside of the studio, but there are people that I have these long-standing, deep creative relationships with, where I'm seeing them, at least one season of the year very consistently every year for years. I've been doing this, and there are people, that I've started recording when they were that I met. I used to volunteer teaching beat production at a community center here, and so I met these guys when they were like in high school, 16,
Yeah,
and now they're that was like in 2014. So now 10 years later, and I'm still
yeah.
working with them. And they were the first clients at the studio, and I'm helping them get their home studios set up. And yeah, the relationships are everything. I'm a person who I don't have I don't have a large friend group. I'm not a particularly social guy, but I do really value the musical relations that I've had, and have always been the longest standing relationships in my life, are the ones that are focused around music. High
Mm,
school friends don't keep in touch with anybody except for the ones that the ones that rap, or the
right. Okay.
um, uh, college friends. Unfortunately, I don't really have any relationship with them at this point. And if they, none of them were making, except for my one homie who I met in school, I've been making music with him once a week, every week for the last 10 years now, and
Yeah, that's
but
it.
everyone
Yeah.
else, has come and gone just because I'm terrible at maintaining relationships. But when there's music involved, those relationships, they go the distance, personally
I
and
feel like that's a
professionally.
trait that runs consistently through a lot of like engineers and producers and stuff like that, because
Mm,
it is our passion becomes our lives. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? So it's like very difficult to sort of like remove yourself from that headspace. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
like, I've got my co-host that comes on this show sometimes, Proton. I met him at college. We've known each other for 15 years, and our relationship, like, we're such good friends, but our relationship
yeah,
is purely based on our joint love for this
yeah,
thing
yeah,
that
yeah.
we do. Do you know what I mean? So, like, yeah, yeah, I think that's a great answer, and yeah, obviously, it is super important to maintain these relationships,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they become, and I feel like music, it's a weird job, because you're in a professional environment, but you have to be so open and honest with each other. Do you know what I mean? You can't put on
Yeah,
this
yeah,
like
yeah.
business front and like create a persona for yourself, like, at a 9 to 5, like a lot of people do. Like, you have
Yeah.
to be real,
Yep,
and so
yep.
I feel like when you do click with a client or an artist, you really click with them, because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
like 100%, 10% being honest with them. I've had
Yeah, yeah.
sessions where my artists have been writing a song or talking about a situation, and they've just broke down. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Wow,
and
yeah.
like, in any other working environment, that would be deemed as unprofessional, or like,
Sure, yeah,
they
yeah,
might have
yeah.
to take some time off or whatever. But it's something that's like, or not expected, but like definitely accepted
Yeah,
in the studio. Do you know what I mean? And it's something that
totally.
only leans into the art. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's really cool, man. That's really cool. I got another question going off a bit, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
slightly I mean, it could be kind of deep, but like less deep question. But obviously, as a self-made engineer, producer, um, um, and mix engineer, like, a lot of our issue, a lot of our problems, and a lot of our day job is consisted of like problem solving. Yeah. So
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you, like, have you ever had any like notable studio fails where you are like, you've lost sleep over it? Like you are like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened, because there's a lot of pressure on us to make sure that
Oh,
this
yeah.
ship runs smoothly,
Yeah.
and things do go wrong.
Yeah, I fortunately, I haven't had anything too devastating because my rig is so lean, I'm literally just I've got a single line going into an Apollo, going into the laptop, and that's all there is to it. So I've never really lost any work. We did have when I was bringing the new engineer on this summer, we lost a couple of files just from saving conventions, you saving as over a template or something. So I lost a couple projects this summer.
Oh, okay.
Um, but that but, you just if something that was cut in, like, 30 minutes, you just offer them a free hour on the next session, and it's all good,
Right.
So I
I was
haven't
gonna
haven't
ask you,
had
like,
any,
how
like
do you resolve that situation with them?
yeah, I haven't had any devastating blowback, from any I have had, um yeah, no, I haven't had any, like, I guess, technical failures on my part that are like that like set me back with a client or I'm sure I've like provided less than I'll always try to go above and beyond for everybody, but I'm sure there are people that have left here with and been unsatisfied with the level of the rough mix in the session or something. I'm sure that's happened, but I've never had yeah, I've never had
Well, I mean, that's good, and I think, yeah, that's quite a unique point, because I feel like there's, you know, a lot of stories, and I've heard some
right,
on
right.
here that are like, oh God, do you know what I mean? Me personally, I've had some stories where I'm like, my girlfriend will tell you, like, something goes wrong, like, don't she doesn't want to be around me. I'll text her
Oh,
and be like,
damn.
maybe go out with your friends tonight or something, because I am not going to be fun to be around today. Do you know what I mean? Because
Damn.
it like really does cut me deep. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
entirely responsible. So yeah, it's a question that
Yeah,
I like to
damn.
ask, but I'm glad that you haven't had too many
Well,
experiences. And I know
it's
the issues
coming,
with, I know the issues that you can have when bringing other people into your space, and like them not understanding fully how you work. Like I get it all the time with the guys that use MySpace. I'm like, bro, like you have to make sure that this is left like this. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's so important, XYZ. And they obviously, because until they own their own space, they're never gonna fully appreciate like what that
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
Do you know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So I can relate to that quite a lot. Like even small things, like they turned off my radiator by hand the other day, and I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, it's set to my, I don't want to say the name, but like my
Yeah, yeah.
automated system. Um, so it turns on like throughout the night to keep the
Oh,
equipment
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
at
yeah.
a relative temperature so it doesn't get too cold. And I'm trying to
Yeah.
explain that to them, and they're just like, and I'm like, bro, like if the gear breaks, like because it
Yeah,
got too
yeah.
cold here, it's going to be a problem. So,
I
but yeah, that's yeah, fair enough.
I
Going a little bit more on the technical side of things, like as a mix engineer, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
ask this question every single episode about fail, and we
Yeah, yeah,
normally
yeah.
get at least one of the same answer, but I'm interested to know, what are your three favorite mixing plugins at the moment? Like, what's all
Oh,
going on in the
man. Yeah,
chain?
I did listen to a couple episodes, and so I'm gonna, the obvious I'll give you a quick, a very quick, I'll give you the 3 that everybody already probably well, like, I'll give you 3 basic ones and then maybe 3 more, so,
I
like,
love
on
it.
every vocal chain, I got, like, R comp, I got, Pro Q3, and I got, uh and I use a Slate ML1 microphone, so I have the Slate Virtual Mix Rack.
Oh,
It's like
okay.
their little plug-in chain with
Yeah, I
they
used
have
to
the
use that all the time, actually. I sort of traded it in for a lot of the UAD stuff now. Sort of
yeah,
like
yeah,
built
yeah.
my own version of the vocal chain that I used to run through that.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, I rided for that plugin for a very, very long
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I can back it, and it is a serious tool. Like it's
Yeah.
like having your own like lunchbox 500 series
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
everything.
Yeah, yeah. I don't get too deep into it, honestly, man. I mean, I have the mic model in there, and I'll use a preamp, and I like the SSL EQ on there,
Yeah, yeah,
and
same.
a few of the other modules depending on the needs. But then I'll give you three more on the mastering chain that I like. I've been using uh, Dyne One by Leapwing.
Okay.
It's like a multi-band parallel compressor, really nice. I don't get super deep into the settings, but it's DYNE1. I think that's what it's called.
I don't
Um,
know if I know that one actually. I'll have to check that
yeah,
one out. You might
look
have
it
just
up,
put
man.
me on.
Get the demo and then just slide those faders up on your mix bus. See how it feels, man.
Okay.
It's nice. I like the Unisum mastering compressor. That's from Tone Projects.
Okay.
And then yeah, and I like the black box too,
Shout
for
out.
saturation. Yeah, I love the width module on there, just a touch of the width on the mix bus. Yeah, again, not too heavy handed, just tap the knobs a little bit and let it
Yeah.
go.
That's what we were saying in the last episode with Devon. It's like such a great tool, like
Oh
to.
yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah, he was talking about that one too, huh?
Yeah, he loves that saturator, like
Yeah.
rides for it. So yeah, and but it's so true. It does elevate quite a lot, and like what he was saying with the minimal sort of like it gives you a lot of perceived volume without having to like affect
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
bus so much. Like it's I don't know how they've done that, but like it works very very well, and it's a very very nice plugin. We yeah did I made a reel about it actually, which
Oh,
done really
nice.
well, talking about numbers and stuff like that. So I was
Yeah,
happy with
yeah.
that. But
Hell yeah.
yeah, that's cool. Have you heard of one plugin that I've been using? My boy put me onto it like a couple of weeks ago on my master bus. Spectre.
Spectre. That sounds familiar, but I don't think I know it.
It's
No.
by Waves Factory,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I use
and
Trackspacer a fair amount.
mate, try this plugin. Like, try
Okay.
this plugin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like a harmonic EQ, so it's only doing boosting, but
Sure,
like
sure.
top shelf. And for me, where I like using it is like I feel like a lot of my mixes when I'm finished with it, it's missing like some like low mids area, like
Mm.
the subs booming, highs and highs, everything. And I'll just like boost up around like 300-400, and it just rounds off
Mm.
the sound so nicely and adds this like harmonic distortion
Mm.
to the area. Like it's lovely. So
Okay.
yeah. And then
I'm a
obviously God particle as well, that ends up on most of my
Oh, yeah,
um
yeah.
outputs at the moment, because that's
What
Jason Joshua killed it.
what is your approach with the God particle? Because I use it every day too, but sometimes I find that it really the coloration and especially the imaging, because it's the thing that I realize is affecting the image. And because sometimes I'll just be mixing into it, and I'll come and I'll have these issues with the image, or something sounds muddy or blurry, and then I'll turn it off and be like, oh, it was just that. So do you have an approach when you're dialing it in, or I guess?
Yeah, so I mean, I actually went to a Jason Joshua seminar
Oh,
at Abbey
nice,
Road. It was awesome, super cool experience. Like obviously him
that's
at Abbey
dope,
Road, like it was like, a once in a lifetime experience sort of thing.
crazy, yeah,
Um, Shout out to Audio Movers, they hooked that up for me. But and so I got to learn his whole process going into it.
oh,
And I
amazing,
think like obviously when you're talking about like the muddy situation and stuff like that, like the way that he mixes his low end, and there's a whole process and technique that leans
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
to that color and
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
width that plugin uses. And so obviously you can use it in whatever way you like, but like it definitely does lean very closely and works well as a pair with his sort of like low end
I see,
processing.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So for me right now, I'm sort of like I'm opening up my mixes. I'm getting like a rough sort of like vibe going on with
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah,
Then I'll put it on and I'll go in and sort of like fine sweep everything, So it goes on quite
mm,
early. It does go on quite early on in my mixing
mm-hmm.
process. I tend to leave a lot of my other bus plugins off,
Mm.
Sometimes I'll put like a bit of a glue compressor on until I feel like, okay, cool, I'm there, and then I'll add things in to sort of lean
Mm.
into the processing of
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
plugin to enhance it in the ways that I want it to be enhanced. But the main thing is the technique, like not going too much into it, but because he has videos on this technique,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like that low end, like mid stuff that you might be finding, he has a lot of control elements going on with his drums and his bass that
Mm.
you end up getting this super tight controlled bass, and then I feel like it leans in and opens up a bit more with the God particle because it allows it
Yeah,
to
yeah,
breathe
yeah.
a bit more. The main thing is like, it's standard stuff. It's like he's side chaining
Yeah, yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much all of his 808s and bass
Interesting.
drums, like, and not just the basses, like anything that has low end, like past 500, he side chains it to the
Oh,
kick.
wow.
So you're not getting those peaks in the dynamic
Yeah, 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 yeah,
ranges,
yeah.
which is gonna um choke the plugin. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah.
that's
It's gonna
that.
drive the yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a cool little if you wanted to look at it, it's like a 10-minute long video that he released or it was actually taken from the seminar that I was at, and he talks
Oh,
about his
nice.
processing. And it's really cool. So like he's like, if the parallel in his like parallel compression, he's using Soothe to do
Uh-huh.
that sort of movement, so it doesn't sound so sort of like
Oh,
obvious
wow.
and jumpy.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
really
yeah.
cool technique, and yeah, I'm a big fan of it
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
For the longest time, I was like, I was like, I'm not mixing into a limiter. Like, I don't like that idea. I don't want to do it.
Mm.
But the explanation of it is like the limiter's going on there eventually, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
So you may as well mix into it to make sure it sounds the best with the limiter on. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And then obviously, if you then send it off to get mastered or whatever, you can just turn the limiter off, and
Yep,
you've
yep.
still got all that color and the processing that
Yeah,
plugin
yeah,
gives you.
yeah.
So yeah, super cool. I believe that there, like he said, that there's like another version, but you didn't hear that from me, like a number 2 coming out
Oh, wow.
soon. Because yeah, I'll put it on the podcast because I'm definitely like outing it, like I want it to happen. But I spoke to him a couple of days ago, and he said that he's got a new plugin coming out. I don't know what it is, and he's willing to. He wants to come on. He wants to come on here, and
Oh,
when the
amazing,
plugin comes
man.
out. So I'm super excited for that. But
Awesome.
yeah, so watch out for that. Jason Joshua is gonna have a
Oh,
good year this year, I think, with
hell
whatever he's
yeah.
bringing out. So yeah, it's cool that you use it though. I feel like it's in
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
love
people's
it. I
face.
love it. I haven't I've, yeah, yeah. It's
Have you
on.
tried Knock from Decap yet?
Um, no, but I just listened to, David's episode where he was talking about that, so I'll have to check that one out. That's like a drum bus or a clipper or something?
Yeah, it's basically a drum bus processor all in one.
Oh, okay,
And
nice.
the thing is, obviously, we as more like technical engineers, we can go a little bit deeper into how it works. But what's brilliant about it is like people that just don't know and just want to get like big, like
Yeah.
producing stuff. It's like one knob, just turn everything up, and you can just hear like it just sounds so much bigger. Like he's
Wow.
created a really powerful plugin. But what is
Cool.
really cool is there's like certain settings that I can get where it's not exactly the same, but I can emulate the um, clipper from Fruity Loops quite closely,
Oh,
or
nice. Yeah, yeah,
FL.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, now I'm showing my age. Um, but yeah, so it's quite good for that. It's got saturation knob. It has this punch, which is basically like a
Wow.
transient shaper on the low end. It's a really cool plugin, and I like it. I'm gonna do a YouTube video on it because I think it's super dope. And yeah, Decap's a really cool
Nice.
guy as well, man. So shout out to Decap. Um, so one thing, going outside of the plugins and the technical stuff, I tried to not like talk too much on that kind of stuff on the podcast because my main thing
Ye
here is like just getting the stories of the
Yeah,
people
yeah,
out. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean?
totally.
There's so much content out there about the technical that people can find. Like I really want to know the ins and outs. So
Yeah, yeah.
um, the one thing that I wanted to know is like when it comes to like making your videos, making your own music, working on your mixes, like what are you like listening to and what inspires you, even if it isn't music? Like what's keeping the fire
Mm.
going? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I listen to a lot of different stuff. I think my listening habits over the years have changed. And for a number of years there, especially when I first started the studio, I really stopped listening to music for pleasure and discovering new artists. And I do regret that era, that it was several years there where I really just um and I did stop being inspired in a lot of ways too, because I
Yeah.
wasn't having new inputs. But I think when I was younger, I listened to a lot of production. Um, was the question? Sorry, man.
Like
Was the
what
question specifically what I'm listening to, or what?
yeah, just like what inspires you really?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it
yeah,
could be
yeah.
now, you know, and what, you know,
Gotcha.
fuels the fire, you know?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of artists that I work with really inspire me. So that's always that's always a big thing. Is, I get out of a session and it's just like, damn, like that makes me want to go make some music of my own right now.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah.
But I also find a lot of inspiration from just discovering new artists, stuff that I wouldn't normally listen to. I've listened to a lot of hip hop and electronic, and but I think as I get older, I'm listening to more, like house music and
Oh,
like
really?
jazz, the contemporary jazz, and stuff where people are playing actual instruments. I'm finding extremely inspiring right now, less
No.
so than like in the box productions. And but I'm currently I'm keeping it really. I think when I was younger, I used to find an artist and get obsessed and become a super fan and listen to like their albums over and over again. And now,
Yeah.
just because of the way that the consumption of music has changed and just the culture of everything, I'm doing a lot more dabbling, a lot wider, taking in a lot more. And there's pros and cons to that,
I
but
was gonna say,
that's
like,
something
I
that
don't
I've
know if
found.
that's necessarily like a good thing, like that the way that the industry's like panned
Yeah,
out like that. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I used to, you know, one of my favorite things to do was to go on what was it called? It was like a site, Dat Piff. Remember
Oh yeah,
Dat
that piff.
Piff?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
man. And I would find just download something that looked cool, and then I would find like my favorite artist. I remember it was my birthday one year. It might even be my 18th birthday, and Flatbush Zombies just put out their first mixtape,
Oh
and I
yeah, yeah,
downloaded it,
yeah.
and it became like an obsession. Like it was like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
the theme song for that entire year. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, 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 yeah.
And so, you know, I do really miss that. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
still feel like there's artists there that are capable of producing an album like that gets
certainly.
that much sort of like traction and like feeling like Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole and people like that. But even so, it still feels like such a shorter period, like of like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like, yeah, fueling it, you know? So yeah, I don't know. I feel that's one part of the industry where everything is so quick, so consumable, move
yeah.
forward, move, like that really doesn't like that doesn't inspire me, if you know what I mean.
Right, right, right. I do like being exposed to, it's like I do like the fact that I can go on, when I was a kid, I guess I'd go onto iTunes, and this was, I guess, I was too young to know about Lime, or maybe it was pre-LimeWire, but iTunes, but not, I wasn't quite old enough to have, maybe like in early middle school, I'd get like a $20 iTunes gift card or something, and I'd go
Yeah,
on
yeah.
iTunes and I'd listen to the 30-second previews of all these albums for hours, trying to figure out what I was going to spend my $20 iTunes gift card on. Like,
I
30
totally can
seconds at a time,
relate.
like,
Yeah.
like, is this going to be the one that I buy today?
You just like
It-
unlocked a memory for me, man. That's crazy. Like I totally remember doing that. That's so mad.
yeah,
Like the 30-second snippets, like that's mad.
yeah.
You fully just unlocked a memory for me. That's
And so
crazy.
so I do love that now that, you can have these, you can find an artist, and Spotify will just generate an entire playlist of similar songs, and you can just listen to that casually and see what. So I do love just the ability to access new artists, but I
Yeah,
do,
of
yeah, like
course.
you're
Yeah.
saying, I miss the depth
Yeah.
of the relationship with the music that I think I had when I was younger, when there was just less music. There was a time in my life when I just had a stack of CDs this big, and but when I was a kid, a little kid, it just had that stack of CDs, and you're just like, what are we gonna listen to today? We got these CDs, and there's like three of them that I really fuck
Yeah.
with, and it's gonna be one of those. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. Like as a kid growing up in the UK, especially like obviously I was big into the grime scene here,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and that's how I sort of like started my career as well. I worked with a lot of the big heavyweight grime artists
Oh
that
nice.
come around, and I was heavily influenced by my older brother. We used to have this dirty garage in the back of the garden, and he had these two 1210 decks, and he'd just be mixing grime with all
That's
of his
awesome.
mates, and I would
Yeah.
be like, I want to hang out, like, so you know what I mean, like that's how
Yeah.
it got inspired. But a lot of my music taste and like where I found my real passion for music was like American hip hop, right?
Mm.
And I just remember like obviously where it was so limited and just going on that piff and like becoming obsessed with these artists and listening to the same music over and over again. Like I miss having like they're coming in September, like, and that's the only time I'm going to be able to see them probably for the next 2 years or something. So every
Yeah.
single person that was into it would be there, and like it
Yeah,
just be
yeah.
like this massive like mash of like everyone that loves that artist just all in one room, and it was just amazing. Do you know what I mean?
That's
There
so
was never
cool.
any real beef or rows or anything like that, and it was like just like, and I made so many friends through doing that. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because that you just connect with everyone. So like that's and I feel like nowadays like that doesn't happen as much. Do you know what I mean? Because there's
Mm.
so much music, like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many opportunities to go and see these artists perform, which I still think is an amazing thing, and everyone should do that. Um, but like it just doesn't feel as special anymore. Do you know what
You,
I mean?
you know, I wonder though too, man, and I don't know how old you are, but I wonder if that's just, like, because in hip hop it is a music of the youth, and I'll tell you, like when I was in my early 20s, going to hip hop shows, having a few drinks, hitting the split, I would have
Yeah.
these like borderline religious experiences in these tiny little like dive bar like style venues where it's just like backpack rappers, just freestyle ciphers, that sort of stuff. I would have these like just absolutely euphoric experiences, and um it was just that time in my life that was the thing. And now I think that I want to say that there's still, at least in Seattle, like people are having that, and that community is still there. And I know a lot of people in my generation was like, oh, the community's not there anymore. I think I've just aged out of it. I think the
Maybe,
youth are still,
maybe.
there's still kids doing their thing, very young people.
I don't know. I
um
think it's slightly different in the UK. I mean, um, those experiences for me in the UK, that was grime sets, and they were the
yeah, yeah,
most
yeah,
energetic. Like, I mean, it wasn't very relaxing. You were
yeah, yeah,
definitely
yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
edge, but it was so energetic and so like crazy
Yeah.
that and there's people that it is a unique scene, like there's
Yeah,
nothing
totally, I
like it
bet.
else in the world, and it's so aggressive, so like they're clashing each other, everyone's just going for it, do you know what I mean? And bars on bars, there's no one's performing songs, there's just a DJ just playing beats, and they're just like
That's crazy. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
so
it's like
cool.
off, and everyone's just going crazy, and like the goal for the MC was to get a wheel up, yeah. So like if he sprayed a bar that was so crazy that everyone loved, and it was directed at someone like or dissed them or whatever, you get a wheel up, and then the whole venue would just go absolutely ballistic, right? And I feel like there's still things like that go on, but nowhere near to the
Mm.
level of what it used to
Yeah,
be.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think a lot of it is because like London culture and stuff like that, and the not to get like political, but like the governments and stuff like that and the councils didn't like it because they related it
Ah,
so much to like the knife crime and all the violence and the gang
ah,
culture and stuff that happened. They did whatever they could just to like
yeah.
lock it all off and like close these venues, like
Damn,
no funding, no nothing. And it just became something that was like difficult to achieve. And then as
damn,
music
yeah.
progressed to now it's more drill and stuff like that. Drill doesn't have that same energy around it that
Right,
to do
right.
these sets, like these instrumentals are so like bouncy and aggressive. Do you know what I
Right,
mean? Like
right,
you would
right.
leave drenched in sweat and like covered in beer and covered in whatever. And do you know what I mean? Like because everyone
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah,
going
yeah.
hard all the time. So yeah, it's something that has definitely changed. And I don't know if there'll be. I'd like to hope there's another moment like that, especially in
Yeah, yeah.
London. But like I don't know if there will be. And I don't feel like
Mm.
it's such a shame because I feel like one day soon. someone's going to make a crazy Netflix documentary about it all,
Yeah.
and the world's going to know just how mad it was and just how much of an experience it was. But I don't feel like the world knows enough about it to really appreciate
Yeah.
just how
Yeah.
crazy that was. Do you know what I mean? Because
Mm.
again, even like in the US, like the hip hop culture, there's so many movies about it. Like
Right. Right.
we
Yeah.
can
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
experience it and sort of know what it was like, but there's not really like as much about it
Totally.
in our culture. But we'll see, hopefully one day. But we went off on a big tangent there, so but that's yeah, it was a cool that was a cool conversation for sure.
Yeah.
One of the last questions that are one of the last questions that I want to ask you, just before we wrap up, because we've been here an hour already, which has just gone like that.
I
It
know.
was such a cool episode. But where do you, and I'm very interested in this question for you personally, actually. Where do you find where would you like to see yourself in 5 years' time? Like what's the vision? Like where's the goal? Where
Oh,
do you want to be?
yeah. Yeah. This is something that I think this is a question that I know I should be asking way more often, have way more clear of a vision than I do. It's something that I think, if you asked me 5 years ago, um, my idea was just like, oh, exactly in the same place, but just more and better. Still running the studio, still doing sessions. I think now, if you asked me that, well, you did ask me that. So now, I guess 5 years from now, I would love to, I guess, just be working on music that I guess, not that I don't want to get out of the music industry, but I want to be spending my time with music, working on music that I want to be working on, like my own personal projects, spend more time on my own personal projects, and probably yeah, just separating my time from the income of the studio business. So I would love to have potentially second or third location, and basically have these places just staffed and running with engineers, that I don't have to be that guy, because I love doing the sessions, but like we talked about before, like the studio business model, like it is what it is. I would love to have the space, have it be self-sustaining, and not be having to be the guy that's in it every day. So I think, yeah, I would love, just to kind of summarize that here, just more music on my own terms, and yeah, that's really the main thing,
I
man. More
love that.
music on my own terms.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really cool, and I think that's obviously definitely an achievable goal as well.
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah,
well on
yeah.
your
It's
way to it. 100%. Have you ever thought about doing any sort of like just another side uh topic here? Like, have you ever thought about doing any sort of like course or like pay, like
yeah.
you have
I,
you done something that I'm just not
so
aware of?
No, I haven't. Now, this is something that I do want to work on, but it's one of these things, like right now, your thing right now is doing the podcast, and
Mm,
that's your primary. For me, it's like I'm basically running two businesses: the mixing business, which is, and then I'm running the studio, and I'm working with the new guy, and my attention is so spread out. It's really been a challenge for me to, and that's why I found moderate success in everything I've done. And I'm not going to say I'm a highly successful engineer, a highly successful studio, or a highly successful content creator, because I'm not. I found moderate, passable levels of success with all these things I do. But because I'm so spread out, I can't. And so adding the course thing, which I know could be the most lucrative thing, a scalable digital product,
100%.
is
It's to me it was like, oh, like it just popped into my head. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense for you.
he,
Do you know what I mean?
here's my, like, and I'm gonna just talk through this. I don't know if this is going to be helpful for any, but my issue is I've never been drawn to online courses, bought a few of them. And the thing that I know I can do, I know I can market it, I know I can sell it, I know I can make the content, but I also know that people buying online courses are generally just getting the satisfaction of making the purchase and then rarely actually completing the material. And that's
Right.
just the statistical reality of it. So I know that I could go do that right now, but because I also sort of, as a consumer of courses and never really being And and again, I've never all the mixing stuff I've just learned from artists telling me like, oh, you should make it sound like this, you should make it sound like this. Because of that my heart just isn't in developing the curriculum, or I haven't found the spark to get excited about actually making the material. And even though I know it would be so potentially lucrative,
Beneficial, yeah.
it's and helpful to so many people. The people that do want to actually make the purchase and complete the material, it would be incredibly beneficial to them. But also, I know that the way it works is that I don't know how to guarantee the impact that I would like to have through an educational product, and I also do not want to be having relationships with a million students either, just because I don't have the bandwidth. So it's something that I'm considering tossing around all the time. But
Yeah, I mean, or you could do it on a smaller scale, um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and a higher price, and do
Mm-hmm.
more something like what I do. I'm trying to develop like the consumable courses that are just made and bookshelved and people buy. But like one thing that I find super beneficial, and obviously it takes more time, but is doing the mentorships. So
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
where you
and
do
is
like
that
an 8 week program with them, and then they're going to turn up to those lessons, do you know what I mean,
yeah,
rather
yeah,
than
totally. And is this so? Just so I have this straight, though, are you teaching mixing or are you teaching the business of freelance mixing?
it's a combination of the two. So um I basically do like an 8 week program where we do like an hour long call once a week, where and we mix a song from start to finish, and then outside of that they have access to me by
Nice,
WhatsApp
nice.
and whatever. I will be talking to them about and looking at their business, looking at their Instagram, looking at their website, and talking them and coming up with strategies and plans to grow that and make that much more
Yeah,
presentable
yeah,
to the world. So, the idea is I'm creating little me's. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
are capable of running a business and promoting themselves and have the
Totally.
understanding of it, whilst being able to actually produce quality mixes as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's sort of like,
That's awesome,
yeah,
man.
that's how I run it. And you know I've never had anyone that's been dissatisfied as of yet, like
Yeah,
touch
yeah,
wood.
totally.
And I've, these guys, I'm very proud of them. Do you know what I mean? And you
Yeah,
build
yeah,
like
hell
an
yeah.
in-depth relationship with them. Obviously, that's something that's the price has to be more,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it's not something that you can just return, and like
Right, right,
it's a
right.
unique course for every single person.
Ho
But I do feel like the people that are willing to pay for it get a much better experience out of it, and
Totally,
like a
totally.
guaranteed results from that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. That really
So
seems like a good way to go about it.
yeah, and like it makes sense, and I feel like you have an audience that would, bite your hand off for that. So
Totally,
it's
totally.
there's a UK YouTuber, Adul something or other. He is basically a productivity guru, and
Mm.
he was a doctor and basically
Oh, yeah,
started off
yeah,
on YouTube.
Ali yeah, I'm
That's
familiar
him.
with
Yeah,
his
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And that's how he started doing it. Was like the one-to-one stuff.
Right,
You know,
and then you develop that
well,
content
that
into
just
it.
for him,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it just scaled out well beyond his capability of doing that. Do you know what I mean? Because he's so
Yeah.
successful now, which is the goal. But he spends a lot of time making sure that even the courses that he does now are,
Yeah, yeah.
and he has the experience to be able to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, it was just an idea that sort of came into my head when we were talking there, because I just think obviously you have an audience, you do educational stuff, and it just like for me, it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
you know what? Like I think that would be like a lane that would work well for you. So
It's
and
definitely something I've considered doing. I've also considered doing a similar thing just for small business, consulting in general for, client acquisition, marketing, running the
yeah,
ads, website optimization, because those are all the meta skills that, you learn when you're building a business for yourself. And,
mm,
and the thing that I keep thinking is like, it's everything is so tight financially in the music industry. Like, what if I could just apply these same skills to any other industry where the budgets are just way, way higher naturally,
yeah, that is the thing. Yeah, that is the
um,
thing.
of course, then you're getting more into but like, do I want to do that? Or, it's a trade off. But
Yeah, there's
yeah, I
definitely
appreciate the
something to
encouragement,
consider.
man.
Say that
I
again.
appreciate I really appreciate the encouragement, man. It's yeah.
No, well, I mean, you inspire me, so it's just like thoughts bouncing,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Hell yeah.
that's just where that came from. Um, my last question to you before we wrap this dope episode up, is any advice you would give to younger guys, or it doesn't have to be younger, but younger guys and girls that are trying to get into the space, trying to open up their independent studios, basically what
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
just talking about, like
Yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
advice would you give them when it came to like starting up?
I think one thing that I wish I had when I was starting is I would just wish I had stronger um, business mentorship initially from people in the industry. That's something that I've never had, and so I've had to learn a lot of lessons very, very slowly. And because of that, and I'm very grateful for where I'm at. I can't complain, but I think I wish I had, and so I would encourage young people to seek out, and I know that's not an easy thing to do, but to seek out mentorship of people that have more experience in the thing that you're trying to do, especially on the business side. Because I've had great mentors, just like based on character and integrity and just how to live a good life. And so I've had I have had good mentors, older people have taken an interest in me and provided me with guidance, and I'm very grateful for that. But specifically on the business side of things, it's very important for the just sustainability of it all to have, like ideally high level business mentorship, or just starting, not even necessarily mentorship, but just always, and this is something that I have done too, is I would encourage young people or people starting out to, start the mastermind group, find 4 or 5 people that are doing a similar thing, have a similar wavelength, and just get on the call once a week. And I've done that, you know, starting many, many years ago. I did that with other, producers on SoundCloud. I did one for not very long during the pandemic with some other engineers, and that's always been really helpful to, just to get a better perspective on where everything's at. And so even if not necessarily mentors or people that have more experience than you, but you're always going to learn something from just connecting with other people.
Oh, 110%. I mean, on that last note, I couldn't agree more. Like, ever since me just starting this podcast, for me alone, just speaking
Yeah,
to all of these different engineers and producers and people like yourself, like, I learned so much, like an
yeah, that's
unbelievable amount.
incredible.
I would say that my knowledge basis has like doubled in
That's
capacity
so
since.
awesome. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and so I couldn't agree more with that, like just connecting with people on your level, and taking in the information. And on that point about finding mentors and stuff like that, I couldn't agree with you more as well. Like, I had to learn the hard way. I had some brilliant mentors in my life as well. Like, shout out to Jay Ralph, like always shout him out. He was my music mentor. He got me through some tough times as well at college and things like that. But when it came to the business side of things, I was very proud and too stubborn to talk about it with other people,
mm,
because I wanted to portray as a young person that I had everything put together and I'm
yeah,
going to become super successful and stuff like this. And I was very silly, because even my dad is now he has an incredible success story, like from bottom of the barrel to top level guy now.
yeah,
And
awesome.
I had this guy that I could have asked for his advice and spoke to him and learned from him, but because of who I was and I was too proud, I never did, and I made so many mistakes, and
Mm,
I'm and I and so many issues where, and I could have avoided all of that, or
yeah,
learned
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
faster by
yep,
just
yep,
being more open with him and communicating with him, because he'd ask me,
totally.
when I was younger, like, oh, how's the business going? I'd be like, yeah, man, it's great. But in reality, I'm like, oh god, like I was struggling to pay my rent last month or whatever. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And but I was too proud to tell him.
yeah,
And he could have given me so much information, which we have these open conversations now, and I learned so much from him. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, finding those people, and that if you look hard enough and your eyes are open, you will find them in your lives.
yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like, and people like that are the right people for you, they always seem open to you coming in, because they can tell, this person is trying to improve their life, like it's worth my time and energy, so they will help you. Do you know what I mean? Because they understand the process. So I think that's fantastic advice, man. And Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. All of your links that you want linking, send me them. I'll put them below in the podcast so people can check out your website, your mixing stuff. If you're not following him on Instagram, please do go and follow him, because his videos are actually so dope. And yeah, that's been brilliant. Again, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Jocelin.
Yeah.
Had a blast.
100%. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. If you have, please give it a like, hit the bell notification if you want updates for when we release these videos. And if you're not already subscribed, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Safe.